And in 2020, last year, we were to have the festival from 20th and 21st of March, but somehow, uh, as the destiny would have it, the colleges and all educational institutes, because of the COVID, were closed from the 13th of March. And despite everything being set, we had to defer the festival. And there have been 5 events every year in the festival. So the first event of national conference online was being held on the 30th of January. National client counseling and the national judgment writing competitions were being held on the 27th of February. And the final five, the fourth and the fifth event, the very important one, the moot court competition and the national debate competition, they are being held today, the national moot court today and tomorrow. We are, as of now, already through with the preliminary rounds, and we are shortlisted with 4 teams. The 4 teams which shall now participate in the semi-finals round, which is going to be judged by our two honorable judges who are very much here. Thanks, Subramaniam ji and Sandeep Chilana ji. Thank you so much once again for giving us time. And of course, I'm very sure about the fact, as I've been saying in my inaugural address, as well as I did come out with a very brief speaking with the students during the prelims round also, that these kind of competitions that the CPJ School of Law keeps initiating for its students, definitely I'm pretty sure of the fact that these are the ones which lay the foundations for our budding lawyers, as I would call them, all the law students, to understand, to kind of tone their skills, to upskill themselves, and of course, to be what Subramanian is today, what Chilana is today, to be on their footsteps, to be lawyers tomorrow. It is a must that they need to be following all these things of learning. Most importantly, the learning part, and of course, the second part comes when you know the learning. You have the substance with you. You have the stuff in you. Something is already in you. How do you present it? How do you come out with facts? And how's your presentation, your drafting, etc.? It matters a lot. As Justice Sistani in the morning as our honorable guest for the inaugural session did impress upon, that passing a law degree from any college or any NLU even is not a sufficient condition for you to be a successful lawyer. To be a successful lawyer, as he said, the mantra is nothing, one, two, three, four, and he said it's only hard work, hard work, hard work, and hard work. And I totally believe him. Any profession, especially the law profession, the legal profession, if you wish to be something, wish to be an established lawyer, a known, reputed person in the legal field tomorrow, students, you all should understand it, and this should remain as one of your success mantra to be successful lawyer. That hard work is not to be forgotten, and of course, along with working hard towards achieving your goals, towards achieving whatever that you have in mind to be tomorrow in the legal fraternity, you should keep, injecting more and more knowledge about the legal profession, about facts, about whatever that you learn, not just from your studies, but as much learning as you can do, and such practical knowledge that comes to you through moot court competitions, etc., only adds further to it. It adds, as I say, feathers to the caps. So this is what it is. As I said, we have 4 teams which have qualified for the semi-finals rounds of the semi-finals of the moot court competition. I feel honored to uh, give the names from the slot 1. We have team number 526 and 504. I repeat, from slot 1 of the preliminary slot 1, the 2 teams which have entered the semi-final round are 50 with the team code 526 and 504, while the 2 teams from the slot 2 are teams with the team codes 522 and 516. 522 and 516. So we have 4 teams with team codes 526, 504, 522, and 516, which shall now compete in the semi-final round. And after the judgment from our honorable judges, who are very much here to judge this event of semi-finals, we'll be left with 2 teams who shall compete tomorrow in the final round of National Moot Court competition. One thing I would add further before saying a thanks once again to our honorable judges to be here. One thing I've always said, and to my all students, and have been repeating it non-stop, it's not just winning which matters. At this stage of your career as studentship, participation in itself is an achievement. So anybody who has participated today, my thanks to you all, my wishes to you all. And as I've said, that when have 10 guys standing for the Olympics final, nobody can, for a 100 meters race, nobody can deny that any one of them is not one of the best sprinter in the world. But of course, gold goes to one, silver to one, and a bronze to one. Only three go back with something back to their countries with a medal, absolutely around their neck. So this is what it is, despite the fact that the other seven were no lesser an athlete. So you all had participated. I was going through the proceedings of your moot court in the preliminary rounds, and every student really gave their best. And it was upon the judges to decide, and we welcome and we honor their judgment. And this is what it is. These are the four final teams which will be judged by honorable judges in the semi-final round. My thanks once again to Sandeep Chinanaji and to Justice Sri Subramanianji for giving your precious time to judge this event. It is your advisors, it is your guidance which makes the law students of our college and the student fraternity, who's all as of now is listening to you, to really understand and to bring upon and kind of improvise improvements in themselves. Thank you so much, Chinanaji and Subramanianji, once again. Gratitude on behalf of CPJ College that you are here to judge this event. Thank you so much once again. And best of luck. The four teams, give your best shot. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a tough time for the judges also to come out with their final judgment, that would be the ones for the final round. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ms. Shivali. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable insight. We are honored with the presence of Mr. A.V.S. Subramaniam, Advocate and Managing Partner, Legal Minds International Law, Delhi. Mr. Subramaniam has graduated in law from NBM Law College, Andhra University, and post-graduation in law with specialization in labor laws from Acharya Nagarjuna University. A performance-driven professional with more than 20 years of experience as an advocate and as an in-house legal counsel, he is expert in corporate advisory and litigation relating to company law, civil law, banking laws, arbitration, and other regulatory matters. He is an expert law trainer and having over 20 years of experience in conducting training programs at various PSUs. He is having excellent track record in conducting domestic and international commercial arbitration. Sir also regularly represents clients before various judicial forums, including Supreme Court of India, High Courts, District Courts, and Arbitral Tribunal. Also, various state statutory forums and tribunals such as NCDRC, SCDRC, NGT, Competition Commission, NCLT, and NCLAT. He is having expertise in labor and industrial law litigation. Sir, we welcome you. Sir, would you like to share your views? Hello.
Sir, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. In fact, Mr. Amit, when he called me up to judge this moot court competition, frankly speaking, I was not sure because I'm still on a tour. I'm in a remote place in Bihar called Nabi Nagar. I have come here for a pre-arbitration meeting, which is still going on for the past 3 days. So probably I'm not in the best of the attire also to present before yourself today. But anyway, I had got a reasonably good net facility here. So I thought that I could join and continue. Thank you so much. It's really a honor to participate in one of the events of your college and to judge your students. with regard to the moot court competition. I fully agree with Mr. Chaturvedi sir's message to the students that participation itself is an achievement. Um, uh, Moot court competitions per se, the winner or loser, the loser does not mean that he is losing everything. You have still another at least 75 years of practice because there is no retirement for an advocate. As long as you are keeping healthy and as long as you are living, you can still practice. So you have another at least 75 years of professional outlook to see, and you can very well appear before various courts. Every day is learning in this profession. So I advise my colleagues not to dishearten themselves if they are not declared as a winner in this competition. There is nothing to lose. Participation itself is a great motivation for you. Do well. The topic chosen today is also a very interesting and a contemporary topic. There are lots of judgments which have come already in this topic, including a recent one, which I would like to hear from the students. I would be very much interested if any of the students would pick up those judgments and argue today. I'll not speak much about what are the decided case law or the landmark case law on these on the two issues which are referred to as a topic in the moot court. Let the students come out with their thoughts. I would be very eager to know the research done by the students or the participants who are the semi-finalists in this with regard to this topic. And I wish you all best of luck, and I congratulate CPJ College for organizing such a beautiful event. Let CPJ College organize more and more events and train more and more students. In fact, earlier I recruited candidates from CPJ Law College. They are very good. They're continuing with us. They are doing outstanding work for our firm. So I hope that this mutual relationship with CPJ College and we would be opportunate enough to select more and more candidates from this very college. Thank you all, and wish you best of luck for all the participants in this event today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Subramanian.
Thank you so much, sir, for the extra efforts that you have put in. Now we are honored with the presence of our second honorary judge, Mr. Sandeep Chilana, Advocate and Managing Partner, Chilana and Chilana Associates, Delhi. Mr. Sandeep Chilana specializes in taxation, white-collar, money laundering, and commercial laws, with focus on strategic planning, advisory, and litigation services, having a total experience of more than 14 years. Prior to starting his own practice, Sir worked as partner with Shartul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company for more than 11 years. Amongst others, he has been well recognized in the industry as one of the leaders on taxation laws and has successfully advised various domestic and multinational clients on various complex tax structuring transactions. Mr. Sandeep Chilana also regularly represents various clients on complicated litigation issues before various judicial forums, including NCLT, Tax Tribunal, High Courts, and Honorable Supreme Court of India. He has extensively worked with the clients from various sectors such as oil, gas, automotive, information technology, infrastructure, telecommunication, healthcare, and not-for-profit organizations. Mr. Sandeep Chilana is a prolific speaker and is regularly invited to speak on various tax and international trade issues. He is also extensively quoted in leading business and legal publications on various legal issues. We welcome you, sir. We welcome you wholeheartedly. Sir, would you like to share your views?
Thank you so much, Shivali. Thank you so much for such a warm introduction. I think much has already been said by Mr. Subramaniam and Mr. Chaturvedi. I would completely resonate with the thought process that this profession is about learning from every experience that we have, including winning or losing. Winning or losing is a part of this profession. You will win some, you'll lose some. But the most important aspect is that you get up, dust yourself, and prepare for the next one, and you work even harder on the next matter. So all the best to all the participants. Thank you so much to CPJ College, Mr. Jain, Mr. Chaturvedi, and the team for reaching out to me, for giving me this opportunity to hear such young, bright minds and I am sure that you will make all us proud. All the best.
Thank you so much, Chilana ji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wisdom. On behalf of CPJ College, I would like to congratulate our 4 teams for making it to semi-final round of National Moot Court Competition. Now, let us start with semi-final round of National Moot Court Competition. Before we proceed further, I would like to read out rules of competition. First of all, the language of the court shall be English. The court will follow its own procedure within accepted norms of judicial practice, and in case of doubt or dispute in the matter of procedure, facts, decision of the presiding members of the panel of judges shall be final. Any issues on pleading not discussed within the body of memorial shall not be included in any other section of the memorial. The evaluation of the oral arguments will be based on knowledge in use of fact, correct articulation of fact, factual analysis, use of evidence, correct articulation of legal issues and legal analysis, use of authorities and citation, response to questions, skills of advocacy, persuasiveness, language and style, clarity, brevity, and ingenuity, court manners, and general impression. Each participating team will get 20 minutes, including the rebuttal. One speaker must not speak less than 10 minutes. Moving ahead, let me invite our first set of teams with the team code 526 and 504. Petitioner 526 and respondent 504. Yes. Hello. So your time starts now.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes. Let's start. Yes.
Good afternoon, Your Lordship. May it please the court. Your Lordship, the counsel is appearing before this Honorable Supreme Court of Hindustan under Article 136 by way of a special leave petition on behalf of the appellant in the case of Mr. Munna versus Mrs. Bansuri. The counsel seeks permission to proceed with the statement of facts in brief.
Yeah, you may proceed.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, the facts of the case are as follows. The appellant and respondent, that is Mr. Munna and Mrs. Bansuri, got married in 1998 in Mumbai as per law, and their marriage was arranged by their parents. From the wedlock, they have 2 children, namely Supriya and Sarthak, aged 13 and 17 respectively. Bansuri is a matriculation passed housewife, whereas Mr. Munna is working as a financial manager in a company named Harikishan Das Limited. After marriage, he got promoted and transferred to the Delhi office of the same company. From the very genesis of the relationship, Mrs. Bansuri did not have cordial relations with her mother-in-law, which often led to heated arguments between them. Mr. Munna could not possibly intervene in these problems between his mother and wife, but Bansuri kept on insisting him to shift to an independent place, to which Mr. Munna rejected. This made Mrs. Bansuri extremely furious, and she started throwing household items and utensils outside the house. Even she told Mr. Munna that she left her matrimonial home and said that she will not return until and unless Mr. Munna throws his mother out of the house or agrees to shift to an independent place. Agitated by this behavior, Mr. Munna filed a petition seeking judicial separation. But as the respondent returned back to her matrimonial home within 2 weeks, he withdrew this petition. But even after returning home, the respondent kept on troubling the appellant, asking money to lend to her parents and relatives. When Mr. Munna told her that he would not be able to lend her any further money, she threatened him to commit suicide. Her attempts were even thwarted by him more than once. On one such occasion in 2005, when the respondent asked money from the appellant and he denied, she threatened him to commit suicide. On the very same day, they again had a fight. The appellant and the respondent again had a fight, and when the appellant, that is Mr. Munna, was going outside, he reached the ground floor and he saw Mrs. Bansuri trying to jump off from the balcony. She was later taken to 2 different hospitals by him, and at her own behest, she was again shifted back to her matrimonial home. But even after such an incident, nothing changed between both of them. They were never able to interact with each other smoothly. Again, on one such occasion in 2018, Mrs. Bansuri left her matrimonial home along with her children. Mr. Munna felt now that there is no possibility of reconciliation, which is why he filed a petition seeking divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. This petition was dismissed by the family court. An appeal against the same decision was filed in the Delhi High Court, which was also dismissed on the grounds that there are no specific provisions under the existing laws. In the meanwhile, Mrs. Bansuri also filed a suit for the grant of maintenance, which was denied by the family court and the Delhi High Court on the rightful grounds of desertion by the wife herself. So aggrieved by the decision in case of the appellant, which was taken by the family court and the Delhi High Court, denying the grant of maintenance, the appellant is appearing before this Honorable Supreme Court under Article 136 by way of a special leave petition. The council seeks permission to proceed with the issues of the case.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, there are three issues in the instant petition. First, whether the instant special leave petition is maintainable. Second, whether divorce can be granted on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. And third, whether the respondent is entitled to claim maintenance. Your Lordship, the first and the third issue will be argued by me, and the second issue will be argued by my co-counsel. The council seeks permission to proceed with the arguments advanced.
Before you proceed to the arguments, can you tell me how many years have husband and wife lived together? They got married in 1998.
Yes,
She
Your
left the
Lordship.
house for a few months in 2005. For a few months only, right?
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, from 2005 till 2018, they have again been living together.
Yes,
So
Your
effectively,
Lordship.
they have lived together for 20 years, except for those 2 weeks.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Okay, move ahead.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, our first contention is that the instant special leave petition is maintainable under Article 136 of the Constitution of India. Your Lordship, Article 136 runs as follows. Notwithstanding anything in this chapter, the Supreme Court may, in its discretion, grant special leave to appeal from any judgment, decree, determination, sentence, or order in any cause or matter passed or made by any court or tribunal in the territory of India. Your Lordship, the Supreme Court is not only the court of law, but the court of equity as well. It is not the policy of the court to entertain special leave petition, save in those cases where some substantial question of law or grave injustice has been done. Your Lordship, in the instant case, the dismissal of the decree of divorce that was dismissed by the family court and the Delhi High Court is injustice to the appellant as it is severely affecting the life of the appellant. Your Lordship, the relationship of marriage between the appellant and the respondent has totally broken down and has become beyond repair. Your Lordship, this is a point where neither of the spouses can live peacefully with each other together or acquire benefits of a matrimonial relation. That is why it is better to dissolve such a marriage that exists only in name and not in reality. Therefore, we pray before this Honorable Supreme Court to grant us leave under Article 136 and so that this case achieve the ends of justice. If your Lordships are satisfied with the first issue, the Council would like to
What
seek
is the
permission.
provision of,
Indeed, your Lordship.
what is the provision under law which you are seeking divorce? Under which provision of the Hindu Marriage Act you want to dissolve this? Can you please explain whether irretrievable breakdown of marriage is covered under the provisions of any of the provisions of the Hindu Marriage Act?
Your Lordship, definitely under Section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act, where provisions for divorce are given, in those circumstances, provision for irretrievable breakdown of marriage is not present. Yet the court has granted divorce on the grounds of irretrievable breakdown of marriage on several cases. In several cases, invoking the...
Yes, by exercising which powers the court has granted such divorce?
Article 142, where the court has the power to do complete justice.
Can you please explain any case law by which this court has earlier granted divorce under exercising the powers under Article 142 of the Constitution?
Indeed, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, in the case of R. Srinivas versus R. Shamita, the court stated, and I quote, that there is thus a recognition of futility of a completely failed marriage being continued only on paper. In numerous cases where marriage is found as a dead letter, the court has exercised its extraordinary power under Article 142 of the Constitution of India to bring an end to it.
So now coming back to Mr. Sandeep Chilana's observation, my colleague judge's observation, wherein he has specifically asked you the question that only 2 weeks was a disturbed period, otherwise they are living together. So still you stand by that argument?
Your Lordship, in 2018, the respondent left the matrimonial home. And right now, it has been 3 years that they have been living separately from 2018 to 2021. So there is a period of 3 years of separation where the wife has left her matrimonial home. And Your Lordship, along with the desertion of the wife, there is also no emotional substratum left in the marriage itself. So that is why we are seeking divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage.
Okay, very well. The other argument, please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, the council would like to call upon my co-counsel to argue the second issue.
Yeah, you may argue the second issue.
Yeah, this is the only judgment that you are relying from the Supreme Court of India, right? Is there any other judgment that you're relying on?
Your Lordship, under Article 142.
That's correct.
Your Lordship, another judgment of Ramesh Chandar versus Savitri is also mentioned in issue number 2, which will be dealt by my co-counsel, and we are relying on that judgment as well.
No, Mr. Sandeep is asking about, my colleague judge is asking about this issue. Except Mr. The case which you have cited, R. Srinivas Kumar versus Shameta, R. Shameta, is there any other judgment which you are relying upon on this issue with regard to the exercise of the power under Article 142 to grant a divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage?
Your Lordship, there is another judgment of Ramesh Chandar versus Savitri.
Okay.
That we have mentioned, that where the marriage has broken irretrievably, the apex court has the inherent power under Article 142 of the Constitution to grant appropriate orders in the interest of justice. This was observed by the Supreme Court in the case of Ramesh Chandar versus Savitri.
May I know the citation, please?
Yes, Your Lordship. 1995. To SCC 7.
So Supreme Court has to examine each case on its own set of facts and circumstances and then decide to invoke Article 142?
Indeed,
Is that
Your
you
Lordship.
say? Is that you say?
Indeed, Your Lordship, considering the peculiarities of each case, if the court thinks that it is fit to grant to invoke the powers under Article 142, the court may do so to do complete justice in the matter.
See, there is a dichotomy.
My apologies. My apologies. Please continue.
Sorry. See, there is a dichotomy in this logic for the reason that Article 136 and SLP, Supreme Court is not supposed to look into the facts. It is only supposed to look into the legal grounds. So whether you would still say that the Supreme Court has to consider the facts and invoke Article 142?
In 136, the court does not need to, but in 142, in the case of Ramesh Kumar versus UHBVNL, it was observed that considering the peculiarities of each case, Article 1, the powers under Article 142 will be invoked. But under Article 136, such limitation is not present.
Who are the kids living with right now in this case?
With the wife, Your Lordship, with the respondent.
You can move on to the next issue if you have nothing to add.
Okay, much obliged, Your Lordship.
If Lordship permit, could the researcher help assist my speaker? Your Lordship.
Yes.
Could I help? Or could I assist my researcher in citing the cases on judgment under Article 142 regarding irretrievable breakdown of marriage?
No, you may proceed to the next issue.
Much obliged, Your Lordship.
Council seeks permission to proceed with second issue.
Yes.
Your Lordship, my contention regarding second issue is that divorce can be granted on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. For explaining this contention, I would like to introduce following subcontentions. They are as follows. Number one, that there are several precedents where the Honorable Court has already granted divorce on independently ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Number two, that the court has inherent power under Article 142 of the Constitution to do complete justice between the parties. Number three, the present case is fit where the divorce can be granted to the parties in the present circumstances. And number four, there are several amendments, several reports and Supreme Court direction to incorporate irretrievable breakdown of marriage as an independent ground for divorce. Starting with my first subcontention, it was observed by the Honorable Court in the case of Sandhya versus Kalyan Ram Narayanan. The court observed that when there is separation of 3 years or parties residing separately from 3 years and there is no point for reconciliation between the parties, the court has taken the view to grant divorce in that circumstances. Your Lordship, very similar observation was taken by the court in the case of Durga P. Tripathi versus Arundhati Tripathi. Your Lordship, in our written submission, para number 2.1.5, there are a number of cases where the court has taken view to grant divorce specifically on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, marriage is considered to be a sacramental institution which should be based on love, respect, understanding to each other. When these circumstances are out of the relation of marriage, then it should be considered as dead relationship which exists only in name and not in reality. Moving to my further subcontention, that the court has inherent powers under Article 142 of the Constitution of India to do complete justice between the parties. Your Lordship, it was pointed out in the case of R. Srinivas Kumar versus R. Shamitha that, I quote, there is thus recognition of futility of a completely failed marriage being continued only on paper. In numerous cases where a marriage is found to be a dead letter, the court has exercised its power under Article 142 of Constitution of India to bring an end to it. The similar observation was taken in the case of Romesh Chandra versus Savitri. The court held that, I quote, where the marriage has broken down irretrievably, the apex court has inherent power under Article 142 of the Constitution of India to grant appropriate orders in the interest of justice. Your Lordship, as observed in both the cases, the court has invoked its extraordinary powers, which are enriched under Article 142 of the Constitution of India, in the very similar circumstances where substantial question of law arises. And Your Lordship, this is the present case where court has to invoke powers which are enriched under Article 143 of the Constitution of India to grant justice and to do complete justice before the matter. Your Lordship, moving to my further subcontention, that present case is fit where divorce can be granted to the parties. Your Lordship, what actually irretrievable breakdown of marriage is defined in Encyclopedia of American Law with the following words. I quote, the situation that exists where either or both the spouses are no longer and willing to live with each other, thereby destroying their husband and wife relationship with no hope of resumption of spousal duties. From the above mentioned definition, we can conclude the situation with the following words. This is a situation between the parties when both or any of the party, any of the spouse are able and willing to live with each other, and there is no chance for reconciliation for residing together.
Mr. Gavlani, hold on. Tell me something. Do you think that the marriage as an institute in India or as an institution in India is comparable to something as a marriage as an institution in America, which when you're relying on the American encyclopedia to define irretrievable differences?
Indeed, Your Lordship, though the situation between both the countries are different, but due to the changing circumstances or present scenario in our society, we can rely on in American encyclopedia also.
How many times have your client tried to reconcile this marriage? Do you have any counseling help or anything in this matter? In the facts that you have before yourself, have any efforts been made by your clients with respect to reconciliation of this marriage?
Indeed, Your Lordship, but from very beginning, appellant is trying to adjust level best with the respondent. He has also many a times or all the times he has done all the things, all marital obligation which he have.
My
he has
question is
performed
very
on.
specific. My question is not that what you have done. My question is, have you tried counseling after 2018?
Indeed, your lordship. No, it is not specifically mentioned in fact sheet.
You are not aware. Okay, move on.
Just to inform that there are only 3 minutes left, so kindly wrap up.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have not heard you on the second issue yet.
Yes,
On
I'm going to
maintenance.
conclude it. Your lordship, it was observed in the case of Jyotsna Mukherjee versus Utpal Mukherjee that living apart for a living apart fairly for a long period, it would indicate destruction of essence of marriage. In the present case, both the parties are residing separately from last 3 years, and from last few years they had very strained relationship, and they were having quarrels on very petty matters. Many a times respondent throws household item utensils out of the house. She also performed mental agony on the appellant by way of threatening to commit suicide, and even she also attempted to commit suicide. Your lordship, the present case is fit to grant divorce as the parties has irretrievably broken down. Therefore, to protect the sanctity of marriage, to reduce the number of unhappy marriages, and from getting to prevent from getting wasted to precious number of the spouses, it is necessary to dissolve such marriage. Moving to my further sub-contention that there are several reports, amendment bills, and Supreme Court directions to incorporate irretrievable breakdown of marriage as a ground for divorce. Your Lordship, Law Commission in its 71st report throws much light on the matter with the following words. I quote, irretrievable breakdown of marriage is now considered in the law of number of countries and a good ground for dissolving marriage for granting decree of divorce.
we are a positive law country. It is not in the law right now. I think it would be in the interest to your counsel that you argue on the other issue of maintenance, which requires some time.
Indeed, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, a third contention is that the respondent is not liable to get maintenance under Section 18 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. Your Lordship, subsection 2 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act provides for maintenance to the wife when she is living separately without forfeiting her claim to maintenance. But Your Lordship, what we are contending here is that even in the clauses that are provided in the subsection 2 of Section 18 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, the wife here is not entitled to any maintenance here as she has started living separately on her own wish and without any justifiable reasonable grounds. Your Lordship, in the case of Bhavna Shah versus Nitin Chimanlal Shah, it was observed by the court that if anyone wants right, then he has to perform liability. No doubt the wife is entitled to live separately for any of the just grounds provided under Section 18. But the entire evidence on record shows that Bhavna, the wife, is at fault. She herself has started living separately without any reasonable cause. So, Your Lordship, even in the present case, the respondent has started residing separately from the appellant on her own wish without having any reasonable grounds with her to live separately from him. That is why we are contending that maintenance must not be granted to her under the provisions of Section 18, subsection 2 of the Hindu Adoption Act. Your Lordship, the clause G of the subsection 2 has a wider ambit which states that if the wife has any justifiable grounds living separately other than cruelty, desertion, conversion to some other religion, even then she is liable to get maintenance. But Your Lordship, in the present case, even in clause G, she is not liable to get maintenance because the wife, the respondent, does not have any grounds that would justify living separately from the husband. The appellant has tried to fulfill all his duty in all the parameters, but the respondent, having such high expectations, trying to extract money so that she could give to her parents and relatives, and not being able to have a certain level of adjustment that is required in any kind of matrimonial relationship, has left her husband and started living separately on her own wish, which is why we are denying maintenance. Your Lordship, it is also principle of law of equity that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Here, the wife who is claiming maintenance is wrong on her own part, as she has mentally caused agony to the appellant by threatening him to commit suicide if he does not give her money, by threatening him that she would leave her matrimonial home and not come back if he does not intervene in any of the matters. So that is why we are contending that the respondent should not be able or should not be liable for maintenance.
Thank you, team 526. Sir, you want to ask any questions?
One question I have, Mrs. Nare. What about the kids? Kids are living with the wife. You don't want to give any maintenance to the kids also?
Your Lordship, the appellant is ready to give maintenance to the children, but not the wife here during the subsistence of marriage. The wife is claiming maintenance when the marriage is subsisting. So that is why we are denying maintenance to her. If the decree of divorce is granted in favor of the appellant will be ready to give the maintenance, but not while the wife is residing separately on her own wish. So the appellant would be giving maintenance to the children, but not to the wife.
Can you throw us some light on the recent judgment of the Supreme Court with regard to the maintenance issue?
Your Lordship, the council is not aware of it at the moment.
Any questions, sir? Any questions further?
We can move to the respondents.
Okay, thank you. So
Much obliged, Your Lordship. It was a pleasure arguing before this bench.
T5044.
Your Lordship, why then can the appellant say its prayer?
It's 504 here.
Ma'am, we are 516 and not 504.
It's in the next round. You're not covered with this particular. It's between 526 and 504.
So, sorry, ma'am.
Ma'am, the team which will be running together is 516 and 526.
Okay, okay.
Just to be clear, ma'am, it is 516, right? In this
Yes.
round?
Yes, 516.
May we start?
Yes, please start.
May it please this honorable court, I am counsel 516 speaker 1 appearing on behalf of the respondent in the case of Munna versus Bansuri. Will the bench like to be denoted as ladyships or lordships?
It's the lordships.
With the prior permission of the court, the counsel would like to state some facts of the case.
Ms. Ghia, we are aware of the facts of the case. I think you can directly move to the legal arguments here.
Much obliged, your lordship. With the prior permission, the counsel would like to throw light on the issues of the present case.
Go ahead.
Whether or not Munna, the petitioner, is entitled to divorce, whether or not Bansuri is entitled to claim maintenance. If your lordships permit, may I briefly enlist a summary of my contentions for the first issue. The first contention being that everything stated by the petitioner Munna in his petition for divorce is misleading. It is humbly submitted that all the grounds invoked by Munna of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 are invalid, as not only have the facts been misrepresented by the petitioner, but also the essential conditions required for a situation to amount to a particular ground are nowhere satisfied. The second contention being Bansuri is the actual victim of cruelty and mental harassment and not Munna, as under the grounds as stated under the Indian Penal Code 1860 and the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. It is humbly submitted that it is undisputed that it was not Munna but Bansuri who was subjected to cruelty, mental trauma and suffering at the hands of Munna and his mother. Munna subjected Bansuri to verbal, emotional and economic abuse. Bansuri has also been subjected to racial insults. Moreover, Munna is responsible for abetting Bansuri's suicide. And the last one being, the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage stated by Munna is not a valid legislation. and that a decree of divorce can be sought only under the existing laws of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 and not under any legislation that is not a valid ground for divorce. May I proceed to my arguments, Your
Please.
Lordship?
Please.
It is humbly submitted that no, Munna is not entitled to a decree of divorce as any ground stated by him is not valid and all the other facts are. Section 13, subsection 3 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 states that the petitioner is entitled to divorce if the respondent suffers from mental illness, incomplete development of mind,
Ms.
or
Ghia,
any other abnormal.
Ms. Ghia, the other side is not arguing that they are asking for divorce under any of those sections. They are invoking the power of Supreme Court under section Article 142. What do you have to say on that? It is not their case that it is one of those, if their case fall under one of those clauses. It is their case that that irrevocable marriage is something which the Supreme Court can consider under 142. What is your say on that?
Much obliged, Your Lordship, for the question. The respondent refutes the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage stated by Munna on the ground that it is not a valid legislation under existing laws. A decree of divorce can be sought under the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 only on the ground stated as under the said act. Irretrievable breakdown of marriage is not a valid ground for divorce according to any legislation. The Supreme Court stated the following with respect to the section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955, that it is crystal clear that no such ground of irretrievable breakdown of the marriage is provided by the legislature for granting a decree of divorce. The court cannot add such a ground of section 13 of the act, as that would be amending the act, which is a function of the legislature. Learned counsel for the appellant has stated that this court in some cases has dissolved the marriage on the ground of irretrievable breakdown, but in our opinion, these cases have not been taken into consideration the legal position which we have mentioned above, and hence they are not precedents. A mere direction of the court without considering the legal position is not a valid precedent. If the,
Which case law are you reading? Can you give me the citation for this?
Vishnu Dutt Sharma versus Manju Sharma, 2009.
Citation.
379, Your Lordship.
Citation, please.
6 SCC 379, Your Lordship. The following screen is shared for reference, Your Lordship. The highlighted clause that I just read out, Your Lordship.
Fine, please move ahead.
The Supreme Court also went ahead and stated that if we grant divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown, then we shall by judicial verdict be adding a clause to section 13 of the act to the effect that irretrievable breakdown of the marriage is also a ground for divorce. In our opinion, this can only be done by the legislature and not the court. It is for the parliament to enact or amend the law and not for the courts. Hence, we do not find force in the submissions of the petitioner. If your lordships are satisfied, may I move to the next contention?
As per you, this is not an irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. This is your submission that this marriage has not been is worth saving or salvaging right now. Is your client willing to go back to the matrimonial home?
Yes, your lordship. The respondent does not object to the divorce.
Move ahead.
The other ground.
Tanya, how would you
justify?
Ms. Tanya, sorry to disturb you. How would you justify the position that the judgment quoted by you in Vishnu Dutt Sharma case is of 2009 Supreme Court? 2019 Supreme Court, we had that Srinivasan judgment, R. Srinivas Kumar versus R. Shamita, wherein the Supreme Court has observed that if there are specular facts and circumstances of the case, then notwithstanding any absence of legal position, Article 142 can be invoked for breaking a marriage. So what is your take on that? That is what my colleague Judge Mr. Sandeep is asking you.
The respondent, thank you for your question, Your Lordship. The respondent submits that even then, the Supreme Court has the power to not allow the petition of the petitioner, because if we check the Hindu Succession Act 1955, any ground stated under it does not qualify. The petition does not qualify for the said ground stated under the laws. So even then, the ground of irretrievable broken down of marriages is not a valid legislation.
Can this, do you say that whether Supreme Court, according to you, whether Supreme Court is having power under Article 142 to break a marriage or not?
The Supreme Court does have the said right, but the respondent submits that this is not an irretrievable breakdown of marriage, and even if it is the fault of the petitioner, not the respondent. And the decree of divorce can be claimed by only the respondent, that's fine, not by the petitioner. I would like to add a case law for this on this answer, if Your Lordships permit.
Yeah, go ahead.
The case of Darshan Gupta versus Radhika Gupta 2013 NSEC 1, in that the Supreme Court stated that if either of the parties is guilty of committing a matrimonial offense, the aggrieved party alone is entitled to divorce. The party seeking divorce under the matrimonial offense theory or fault theory must be innocent. A party suffering guilt or fault disentitles himself or herself from consideration. Illustratively, any ground bought by the party, he must be innocent of the same. So in our case, the cruelty, the mental harassment and the trauma and the reason for the breakdown of the marriage, the burden of it falls on Munna, the petitioner, and so the only person entitled to ask for divorce is Bansuri and not the petitioner.
Okay, move ahead.
The next ground stated by the petitioner is the ground of desertion. The respondent humbly refutes the ground of desertion as under section 13 subsection 1(I)(b) of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 invoked by Munna due to non-satisfaction of conditions essential for an act to be considered as desertion. The Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Savitri Pandey versus Prem Chandra Pandey 2002 to SCC 73, Your Lady. It states that for the offense of desertion, so far as the deserting spouse is concerned, two essential conditions must be there, namely the factum of separation and the intention of bringing the cohabitation permanently to an end, that is animus desidendi. It is humbly submitted that the conditions stated in this case have not been satisfied, as the intention to bring cohabitation permanently to an end never existed from Bansuri's side. Rather, Munna and his family's actions that I have enlisted forced Bansuri and her children to leave the matrimonial home. Secondly, the two elements that are essential so far as the deserted spouse is concerned, which is the absence of consent and the absence of conduct giving reasonable cause to the spouse leaving the matrimonial home to form the necessary intention aforesaid. The petitioner for the divorce bears the burden of proving these. Hence, Munna's conduct of refusing to give time, attention, and more importantly, financial support to Bansuri and their children does amount to a reasonable cause for Bansuri to leave the matrimonial home. His constant arguments on petty matters with her, refusal to interact smoothly, that is basically no efforts from his side to restore peace in the married life, and the most important, the Bansuri's mother-in-law subjecting her to racial insults, which is depriving her of her basic fundamental right of equality, amounts to his presence of consent for the desertion, as he gave her sufficient cause to leave the house.
Miss Tanya, you were here when the appellant was arguing? Were you here when the appellant was arguing? Did you hear them arguing grounds of desertion for the divorce?
No, Your Lordship, I wasn't there actually. I was facing some technical error which I which our team actually informed the teacher.
You have to only defend what is being contended. If they are not even contending desertion, why are you defending desertion? To move ahead to the maintenance.
Thank you for the kind and patient hearing, my lordship. My co-speaker will take ahead the next issue.
Good afternoon, bench. May it please the Honorable Court, I am Speaker 2 of the team 516, appearing on the behalf of the respondent in the case of Munna versus Bansuri. If your lordships are well versed with the facts, may I move on to my contention?
Yes, please.
Yes. If your lordships permit, may I briefly enlist my contentions?
Move on to the arguments, please. We have heard the contentions.
All right, much obliged, your lordship. I would like to present my contention on grounds for claiming maintenance under section 125 of Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. Your lordship, it is submitted that before proceeding further with the grounds, we have under section 125, we have to understand that what is the correct actual definition of minor and wife. In reference to this section, it is stated that a minor means a person who, under the provision of Indian Majority Act 1875, is deemed to have attained majority. And a wife includes a woman who had been divorced by or has obtained a divorce from her husband and has not remarried. Your lordship, the fact that Munna used to hold the position of a financial manager in the company, that the fact that he has got promotions too. It is also imperative to note that Munna has the elite facilities of drivers and cars. It is humbly submitted that he has more than sufficient means of maintenance for both his wife and for the minor child as well. Bansuri is entitled to the same level of lifestyle that he has enjoyed in that she has enjoyed in her matrimonial home. It is an established fact that yes.
Mr. Yadav, why are you not?
Yes, your lordship.
Why are you not covered in the exclusion of subclause 4 of section 125?
125 of Code of Criminal Procedure?
Yes. Section
your lordship, I'll be covering that part further.
No wife shall be allowed for.
Pardon, your lordship.
Section 125(4) says no wife shall be entitled to receive an allowance from a husband under this section if she is living in adultery or if without any sufficient reason she refuses to live with her husband. How do you?
Sir, of course, we much obliged, your lordship, for your question. Sir, it has been nowhere established in the whole moot proposition that the wife is living in adultery. So that point should be neglected. The second point, that she is not giving reasonable reasons to stay away from the husband. We have to understand, your lordship, that Bansuri was subject to so much of cruelty. She had been tortured by her mother-in-law. Her husband never took her side. Apart from that, she has been discriminated on her race. Isn't that sufficient grounds to live or stay away from a person who is actually torturing her, not in a physical way but in a mental way?
Do you have any legal proposition or case law or judicial precedent where it has been said that if there is cruelty or harassment is one of the reasons to exclude the wife from the exception under clause 4?
I plead my negligence on that. I plead my I plead my ignorance on that. I won't be having any case laws to present for that, sir.
Okay.
Please also clarify whether it is under 125 or a suit under Adoptions and Maintenance Act you have filed.
Your lordship, we are actually saying that the grounds of maintenance are under section 125 of Code of Criminal Procedure.
Actually, the fact on the file says suit. A suit for maintenance.
That is not a petition under 125 of CRPC. Probably it should be under Adoptions and Maintenance Act.
The
Absolutely,
difference in
sir.
a
I'll be
suit and
covering those
litigation.
parts. I'll be covering those parts in my further contention. If your lordship is patient, or should I just move on to the parts where I talk about the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act?
I think that is what the appellant has argued.
Can you
Absolutely.
can you
Yes,
throw
Your Lordship.
some light on Rajneesh versus Neha case on this aspect of maintenance?
Which case, sir?
Rajneesh versus Neha.
I plead my ignorance on that, sir.
Siddharth, this is to inform you that you're left with only 4 minutes, so kindly try to wrap up.
Yes, ma'am. So should I, if your lordships are satisfied, should I continue with the grounds of claim and maintenance under Section 18 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act? Yeah. Your lordships, in accordance with the fact sheet, it is very clear that Munna is guilty of willfully neglecting her and their children, not only financially, but also stopped giving them time and attention without any sufficient reasons to do so. It is humbly submitted that all the instances of cruelty by Munna and his family are sufficient to cause a reasonable apprehension in Bansuri's mind that it will be harmful or injurious to live with her husband, as his torture has resulted into she is suffering mental and physical trauma. Hence, she is justified in living separately. If your lordship, this answers your question before.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah. I would also like to throw light on the grounds of claiming maintenance for children under Section 20 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. Your lordship, it is humbly submitted that both Supriya, aged 13, and Sarthak, aged 17 years, are legitimate minor and unmarried children of the petitioner. Munna, hence, are undisputedly entitled to claim maintenance under Section 20 of the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act. If your lordships are satisfied with this contention, I would like to plead the prayer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whereof, in the light of issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, may this honorable court be pleased to dismiss the petition, dismiss Munna's petition for divorce as the conditions necessary under the relevant sections of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 stands unsatisfied. Second, grant the respondent Bansuri the maximum possible amount of maintenance under the relevant sections of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 and the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. And pass any order it may deem fit in the interest of justice, equality, and good conscience.
Ma'am, will we have some time for the rebuttal round?
You have to cover everything in this, whatever was given to you, like 20 minutes. Sir, do you have any questions?
I have one final question
Yes.
for the respondents. Ms. Ghia and Mr. Yadav, is your client willing to reconcile with the husband? Have you guys tried counseling? Or do you believe that this marriage is actually dead and there is no scope to revive it? What is your view on that?
The respondent humbly submits that Bansuri does not categorically object the ground of irretrievable breaking down of marriage, but also very clearly states that the petition should be allowed to, the petition should be coming from our side, because the Supreme Court judgment clearly states that the aggrieving party only has the right to call for such a petition in the court. But without prejudice to the aforementioned point, we state that even if the divorce is granted, what we want is maintenance for our client, because the separation has been done and the Bansuri needs the maintenance for the children, more importantly, who have been staying with the respondent. And they are completely entitled to the maintenance, and Bansuri is also entitled to the maintenance because it is due to Munna's habits and it is due to the cruelty inflicted upon her that the separation has happened.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the kind and patient hearing, your lordship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So shall we move forward?
Your
Yes.
Lordship, if you permit, can I add one last conclusion? The case Rajneesh Sharma that you asked about, it is a Supreme Court case, Your Lordship, in which maintenance was granted to the wife, Your Lordship, by the Honorable Supreme Court.
If you're aware of it, then you will have to have an affidavit also prepared in that, in the manner that this judgment provides.
Okay, Your
Supreme Court
Lordship.
has given parameters on which the maintenance has to be granted. Lot of law has been consolidated in their judgment. And if you are asking, if you're quoting that, then we'll be asking much more on it. Are you fully aware of it, or just search the net and then?
I'm briefly aware of it, Your Lordship.
So shall we move forward?
Yes, madam.
Okay, thank you, team 526 and 516. Now let us invite our second set of team with the team code 522 and 504.
Can we just take a break for a minute and then rejoin?
Yes, sir, yes, sir, sure. Now, meanwhile, can we add 522 and 504? The first set of teams, they can leave. 526 and 516, they can leave.
Five 16 is done, ma'am. We were 516.
Yeah, you're done. You can, you can take the leave from the
Okay,
session.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Now it is between 522 and
504.
first moot was between 526 and 504, no?
No, sir, it was 526 and 516.
Achha, 516
Yes, sir.
first moot.
And now it's 522 and 504.
So respondent was 516
Yes,
in
sir.
that. So now it is between 522 and
504.
504. Okay. Same topic for them?
Yes, sir. We'll be starting in 1 minute.
Okay. Okay. No issue.
We shall start once the judges are ready. Yes, sir.
Yes, we can start.
Okay. 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 Let me invite our second set of team with the team code 522 and 504. Kindly stick to the time and try to wrap up within 20 minutes, and I'll be telling you when only 5 minutes will be left. Best of luck.
Thank you, ma'am.
The council seeks permission to have access to the mic.
Yeah, you can proceed.
The council wishes the Honorable Court a very good evening. The council is representing the petitioner. If it may please the court, the council would like to address it is your lordship.
Yes.
Much obliged, your lordship. Your lordship, the council has approached this Honorable Court under Article 136 of Constitution of Hindustan. For the sake of brevity, the council would firstly like to elucidate before this Honorable Court some relevant facts of the case. The marriage between Munna and Bansuri was solemnized on 28th of June 1998, and from the wedlock, they have two children, namely Supriya, aged 13 years, and Sarthak, aged 17 years. As far as the qualifications and job status of the couple is concerned, Munna is a financial manager and Bansuri is a matriculation passed housewife. The council would further like to state that from the very beginning of their relationship, Munna's mother used to chide Bansuri for her skin color and her educational qualifications. Also, she taunted her for being a financial burden on the family. Further, one day Bansuri left the matrimonial home and in return, Munna filed a petition for judicial separation, which was later withdrawn by him. On 5th of November 2005, a heat of arguments took place between the couple, and within no time, Bansuri could be seen jumping from the second floor of the apartment. Even after this incident, the things remained the same between the couple, and there was no reconciliation between the couple. One day, that is on 2nd February 2018, Bansuri left her matrimonial home. Therefore, Munna has filed a petition before this Honorable Supreme Court seeking divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. On the other hand, a petition has been filed by Bansuri seeking maintenance. Your Lordship has become well versed with the facts of the case. The council would like to proceed with the issue.
Yes.
Your Lordship, in the present case, there are two issues. Issue number one is whether Munna is entitled to divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. And issue number two is whether Bansuri is entitled to claim maintenance from Munna. Your Lordship, the council will be dealing with issue number one. Shall the council proceed with the arguments?
Yes.
Your Lordship, issue number one before this Honorable Court is whether Munna is entitled to a decree of divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, it is most humbly submitted before this Honorable Court that irretrievable breakdown of marriage has not been provided anywhere explicitly as a ground of divorce. But Your Lordship, special mention needs to be made of the 71st Law Commission report. I would like to quote the same. Restricting the ground of divorce to a particular offense or matrimonial disability causes injustice in those cases where the situation is such that although none of the parties is at fault or the fault is of such a nature that the parties to the marriage do not want to divulge it, yet there has arisen a situation in which the marriage cannot be worked out. The marriage has all the external appearances of the marriage, but in reality it is much more like a facade. And all the bond that is required in a marriage, it has disappeared. Your Lordship, this Honorable Supreme Court has changed its approach from the conservative one to a liberal one, wherein it has granted divorce in various cases on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, in the case of Naveen Kohli versus Neelu Kohli, which is a case decided by this Honorable Supreme Court only in the year of 2006, divorce was granted on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. And further, it was recommended that an amendment be made in section 13 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Your Lordship, first of all, it is contended before this Honorable Court that this court has jurisdiction and this court has the requisite jurisdiction to entail this matter under Article 142 of the Constitution, under which powers has been vested on this court. Your Lordship, in the case of Anil Kumar Jain versus Maya Jain, which is a case decided by this Honorable Supreme Court only in the year of 2009, it was held that Supreme Court has power under Article 142 of the Constitution to grant divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Secondly, Your Lordship, the feelings between Bansuri and Munna have already vanished and they dislike each other a lot. Your Lordship, kindly refer to fourth line of paragraph 5 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that even after such an incident, both of them never interacted with each other smoothly and nothing changed between them. And they kept having arguments again and again on petty matters. Your Lordship, in the case of Rajendra Krishna Agarwal versus Srimati Sandhya Rani, which is a case decided by Honorable Patna High Court in the year 2009, divorce was claimed by husband on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. The court observed that the feelings and emotions of the parties for each other had already vanished, and to refuse divorce to the husband and to compel the parties to resume under matrimonial relief will not serve any purpose, and the court thus granted the decree of divorce in the favor of husband. Your Lordship, since the feelings and affection between Munna and Bansuri has already vanished, it is of no use to carry this marital relationship forward. Thirdly, Your Lordship, all the efforts of reconciliation between the couple have turned futile. Your Lordship, kindly refer to paragraph 2 and 3 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that Bansuri left her matrimonial home by saying that she will not return until and unless Munna throws his mother out of the house. This shows that, but after 2 weeks, she returns. This shows that she made efforts on her part. Further, Your Lordship, kindly refer to paragraph 3 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that Munna filed a petition for judicial separation, but after Bansuri returned to her matrimonial home, he withdrew his petition. Your Lordship, these facts clearly show that both the parties have made the efforts of reconciliation in this case. Your Lordship, in the case of K. Srinivasa Rao versus D.A. Deepa, which is the case decided by this Honorable Supreme Court in the year 2013, it has been held that where there are hardly any chances of the respondent wife leading a happy life with the appellant husband due to the bitterness created by the conduct of the respondent wife, it was better to dissolve the match. Your Lordship, further, in the case of Kanchan Devi versus Pramod Kumar, which is a case decided by this court only in the year 1996, it was held that the divorce case had a checkered history and the parties were living separately. It was found that there was no possibility of reconciliation, and therefore exercising its powers under Article 142 of the Constitution, the Supreme Court granted a decree of divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, fourthly, the parties are no longer entrusted to live with one another. Your Lordship, kindly refer to the last line of paragraph 2, wherein it is stated that Bansuri left her matrimonial home And she said that she will not return to her home until and unless Munna throws her mother out of the house. Your Lordship further kindly refer to last line of paragraph 5 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that Bansuri left her matrimonial home finally on 2nd February 2018. As far as Munna is concerned, he has already filed a petition seeking divorce on the basis of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, these acts on the part of parties clearly indicate that they are not interested to live with one another. Your Lordship, in the case of Durga Prasanna Tripathi versus Arundhati Tripathi, this is a case decided by this Honorable Supreme Court in the year of 2005. The court held that marriages are made in heaven. Both the parties have crossed their point of no return. A workable solution is certainly not possible. Parties cannot at this stage reconcile themselves and live together, forgetting their past like a dream. Further, Your Lordship, in the case of Dr. Gopal Ramanathan versus Cheshri, which is a case decided by Honorable Madras High Court in the year of 2008, it was held that where the parties were living apart and leading a robotic life, any effort to keep the marriage alive would be futile, and therefore the court granted decree of divorce in order to complete justice. Sixthly, Your Lordship, Munna is in no way taking advantage of his own wrong by seeking the decree of divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, Munna's non-intervention during his mother's fight with Bansuri in no way indicates that he is acting against his wife. Your Lordship, in the case of Gopal versus Mithilesh, it was held that the husband's stand of neutrality between mother and the wife, and thereby allowing his wife to be nagged by his mother, is considered normal wear and tear of married life. Further, Your Lordship, Munna stopped maintaining Bansuri only in order to teach her a lesson for her misdeeds, and hence here also Munna has not done any kind of wrong to Bansuri. Your Lordship, Munna and Bansuri's relationship was not smooth because of Bansuri herself due to her repeated suicide attempts and behavior. Hence, it cannot be stated that Bansuri left Munna because he was not affectionate towards me. Adding over one last point here, that considering the principle of live and let live, divorce be granted in the present case. Your Lordship, in the case of Meena Singh versus Mithilesh Kumar Singh, which is a case decided by Honorable Allahabad High Court in the year of 2009. The parties were living separately and there was no possibility of reconciliation, and therefore, following the principle of live and let live, the court held that it is desirable and expedient in the interest of justice to grant a decree of divorce. On the ground of
Ms. Sanchita, these Patna High Court judgments, Allahabad High Court judgments, are these judicial binding judgments on the Supreme Court of India? You're relying on them?
No, Your Lordship. No, Your Lordship. But the council is just referring these judgments for the sake of.
Are there not enough judgment of this court on this issue?
Of the court.
Are there not enough judgment of this court on the issue in last 2-3 years?
Your Lordship, these judgments are not binding on the court.
Which is the most latest judgment that you are relying on this issue?
On the whole issue, Your Lordship.
On the issue of the Supreme Court granting you divorce because even though it is not covered under the Hindu Marriage Act, it
Your
is.
Lordship, most important one is the case of Naveen Kohli versus Neelu Kohli, in which the Supreme Court has granted divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown.
That's also 2005 judgment. I'm asking you the most recent judgment.
That is, I guess, of 2013, Your Lordship.
So you think that after 2013 till 2021, in the last 8 years, Supreme Court has done nothing?
No, Your Lordship, but the council has used this latest judgment only.
2013 is not latest. Brother Judge, you are on mute.
What about the Srinivas Kumar judgment? R. Srinivas Kumar versus Neil.
Indeed, Your Lordship, but the council has not referred to it here. But yes, it is quite relevant in this.
Ajay, you said that the respondent Bansuri left the matrimonial home on a lone will and effort. But the fact that para number 5 does not speak about it. She was fed up with the behavior of your client, that is a petitioner, and then she left. What
Your
is your
Lordship,
say on that?
Your Lordship, kindly refer to paragraph 3 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that Bansuri started troubling Munna for lending money to her parents and relatives. Also, she threatened Munna that she will commit suicide. So it was, and
That is
as
over
far as
after,
acts of Munna
that
are
is over
concerned,
after that. After that, what happened in para 5?
indeed, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, as far as paragraph 5 is concerned, wherein it is stated that Munna was not able to give time to Bansuri. With respect to this, the council would like to refer to paragraph 1 of the proposition, wherein it is stated that Munna is a financial manager in the company Harkishan Das Limited, and that's why he remains with me. And as far as petty arguments between the couple are concerned, they are ordinary wear and tear of married life, and in no way points out to the fact that Munna is the erring spouse here, and therefore he is not entitled to a decree of divorce.
You have quoted about the Law Commission report. Do you believe that the Law Commission report is pending on the Supreme Court for giving you an order in your favor?
No, Your Lordship, the council has referred to it only for the only for the reference of this court. The council in no way believes that it is binding on the Supreme Court.
Okay. What is your take on the other issue with regard to the maintenance?
Your Lordship, the council thinks that the maintenance should not be granted to Bansuri, and rest my co-counsel will be dealing with issue number 2.
Okay.
This is to inform you that only 5 minutes are left, so kindly wrap up with the second argument.
The council would like to call upon the co-counsel to proceed further.
Yeah, please.
The council seeks permission to approach this honorable court.
Yes, you can submit.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Good evening, Your Lordship. This is counsel number 2, contending on behalf of the appellants. I am dealing with the issue number 2. Shall the council proceed with the arguments, Your Lordship?
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So issue number 2 is whether Bansuri is entitled to claim maintenance from Munna. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court, honorable Supreme Court, that Munna is not liable to pay any maintenance to the Bansuri. In the case at hand, Bansuri is not entitled to maintenance under section 18 of the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act 1956, and the same can be established through the following points. Firstly, as per section 18 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956, the right to claim maintenance is the inbuilt right of wife. But when the wife claims right to live separately, she has to establish grounds which are given under section 18 clause 2 of the act, such as husband found guilty of desertion, or husband has treated wife with cruelty, etc. In the case at hand, Bansuri is claiming maintenance while living separately from Munna, and Munna is not guilty of desertion, cruelty, etc. Hence, her right to claim maintenance is forfeited, since any of the circumstances prescribed by section 18 are not fulfilled, considering which she can claim living separately. The second point, Your Lordship, is Bansuri cannot claim maintenance from Munna because she herself is the erring spouse here, and no person shall be entitled to take advantage of his or her own wrong. Your Lordship, Bansuri threatened Munna that she will commit suicide. Bansuri used to fight a lot and throw utensils out of the house. Bansuri even attempted to commit suicide. Bansuri used to fight with Munna on petty issues. Bansuri was forcing Munna to lend money to her parents. And on top of all this, Bansuri left matrimonial home twice without Munna's consent and without any reasonable excuse. After doing so much misery to Munna, she is claiming for maintenance from Munna. Your Lordship, it is like a thief accusing a cop, and it is like a guilty person accusing the innocent person. Hence, Your Lordship, Bansuri in the instant case is the faulty spouse here, and she is not entitled to claim maintenance from Munna. The third point is that Bansuri is guilty of desertion. The definition of desertion can be inferred from the case of Savitri Pandey versus Premchand Pandey, AIR 2002, Supreme Court 591, wherein it was held that desertion means intentional permanent forsaking and abandonment of one spouse by other without that other's consent and without reasonable cause. Your Lordship, intentional abandonment of one spouse is necessary here. In the case at hand, Bansuri left her matrimonial home on 2nd February 2018. She has intentionally withdrawn from the society of Munna without Munna's consent and without any reasonable cause, and hence she is guilty of desertion. Her intention can be established from the fact that she never returned after leaving on 2nd February 2018. If she wanted to return, she would have returned already, but she never returned after leaving the matrimonial home. Your Lordship may refer to the case of Geeta Jagdish Mangatani versus Jagdish Mangatani, 2005, Volume 8, SCC 177, in which it was held that no attempt on the part of wife to return to her matrimonial home after leaving proves animus deserdendi on her part, that is, the intention of permanent abandonment. A deserted wife cannot ask maintenance under this section, and the same can be inferred from some of the precedents cited below. Your Lordship may refer to the case of Dilip Kumar Barik versus Usha Rani Barik, AIR 2007, wherein maintenance claim of wife was rejected on the ground that she has herself deserted husband. And Your Lordship, in a recent 2019 Supreme Court judgment also, Honorable Supreme Court has held that deserting wife is not entitled to maintenance from her husband. Coming to the, yes, Your Lordship.
Time is over. Yes,
okay,
just one question
Yes,
for you, Ms. Gupta. What is the status with respect to maintenance of the children?
Your Lordship, there is the fact sheet is silent regarding this point, and nobody has asked maintenance for the children. But just in case, if the question of maintenance of children arises, I, Munna, the appellant, is ready to pay maintenance of the children.
Okay.
Any questions? Any further questions, sir?
Is the recent judgment you are quoting of 2019, and what does it say with regard to the maintenance?
Your Lordship, it says that a deserting wife is not entitled to maintenance from her husband.
Can you give us the citation?
Your Lordship, actually, it is read from the Times of India newspaper, so we don't have the citation and the name of the case, but it is read by me in the newspaper. It was read by me.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Petitioner is done and respondent can continue.
The counsel for the respondent would like to seek the permission to come forward with the matter.
Yeah, you can continue.
Much obliged. With due respect, the counsel would like to refer the bench as your lordships. Good evening, your lordships. Your lordship may refer the counsel as Speaker 1 and co-counsel as Speaker 2. Speaker 1 would brief you about the issue 1 and issue 2B and C, whereas Speaker 2 would brief you about issue 2A and 2.3. If your excellencies may permit, the counsel would like to come forward with the jurisdiction. The counsel seek the jurisdiction of the case under Article 136 of the Constitution of Hindustan. If the lordships are well versed with the facts of the case, the counsel would like to proceed with the contentions.
Yes, you can straight away come to.
Much obliged. The first contention is that the petitioner's SLP is not maintainable. It is humbly submitted, firstly, that the various available remedies have not been exhausted, and secondly, that no substantial question of law has been raised by the respondent. The plenitude of power under Article 136 of the Constitution has been authoritatively stated by the Constitutional Bench in Durga Shankar Mehta versus Thakur Raghuraj Singh and others, and the exercise of the said power by the court cannot be curtailed by the original constitutional provision or by any statutory provision. Therefore, the civil appeal may be brought to the SC under Article 136 only when they are not covered by Article 133. In the case of Santosh Hazari versus Purushottam Tiwari, the court stated that if the question is settled by the highest court or the general principle to be applied in the determining the question are well settled, and there is a mere question of applying those principles, or that the plea raised is palpably absurd, the question would not be a substantial question of law. There are a plethora of judgments in which the general principle that the divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage can be granted by the apex court has been determined. Therefore, it can be said that there is no sustainable question of law for the court to entertain this SLP. Even in the case of Chief Administrator, Cheti Secretary, Government of India versus DC Das, the Supreme Court has exercised its jurisdiction under Article 136 under the following circumstances. When the tribunal ostensibly fails to exercise its patent jurisdiction, where there is an apparent error on the face of the decision, the tribunal has erroneously applied well-accepted principle of jurisprudence, or the tribunal acts against the principle of natural justice. In the given case, the petitioner has approached the courts which lack the subject matter jurisdiction to entertain the case of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. It has been held in many cases, along with the case of the Munish Kakkar versus Nidhi Kakkar, that the court, only this court, the apex court, has the power to grant divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage under Article 142 of the Constitution, and not any other court. Now I would like to proceed to the second contention. That is that the petitioner is not entitled for the divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. This is so because the doctrine of recrimination will be applied on the petitioner. It is humbly contended before the Honorable Court that doctrine of recrimination will apply on the petitioner. The doctrine of recrimination is on the basis that the equal guilt of a complainant bars his or her right to divorce, and the principal consideration is that the complainant must come into court with clean hands. The doctrine of recrimination states that there is no remedy to be provided to the party at fault. The respondent did not herself left the matrimonial home, but she was compelled to do so because of the mental cruelty inflicted upon her by the petitioner and the mother-in-law. No efforts for reconciliation has been taken up by the husband to reinstitute the cohabitation. He has now, as well on the earliest instances, has disdained from his duty to maintain the respondent as well as his minor children. In the case of Chetan Das versus Kamala Devi and Savitri Pandey versus Premchand Pandey, stated that no divorce can be granted on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage if the party seeking divorce on the ground is himself or herself at fault for the above breakdown. That the decree of divorce on the ground of the marriage had been irretrievably broken down can be granted in those cases where both the parties have leveled such allegations against each other that the marriage appears to be practically dead and parties cannot live together, and not in the case where the party needs a way to escape one's matrimonial obligations. In the instant facts, it can be seen that the parties hail from a conservative background where divorce is considered a taboo, and further they have two minor children who are presently aged about 13 and 17 years. Grant of decree on the ground that the dissolution of marriage will result in a great financial hardship upon the respondent as well as on her children. In a matter where the difference between the parties are not of such magnitude and is of the nature of the usual wear and tear of marital life, the future of the children and wife's marital prospects are to be kept in view. And in such circumstance, the dissolution of marriage merely because they have been litigating and they have been residing separately for quite some time would not be justified. The Supreme Court in Ashok Hurra versus Rupa Bipin Zaveri has stated that certain conditions need to be fulfilled to be included in the ambit of the divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown. Those requisites are: proof of such a breakdown would be that the husband and wife have separated and have been living apart for say a period of 5 or 10 years, and it has become impossible to restructure the marriage or to reunite the parties. There is hardly any utility in maintaining the marriage as a facade when the emotional and other bounds which are the essence of the marriage have disappeared. In this present case, the parties have been living apart only for the period of 3 years and the wife is ready to reconcile. All the cases of breakdown divorce is granted only when the court is satisfied that all the procedures for the reconciliation has resulted useless, but in the instant case, no efforts has been made by neither the parties nor in any court proceedings for reconciliation. There has been no mediation proceedings or conciliation of the parties. In Neelam Kumar versus Dayarani, the court held that if the party to a marriage by his own conduct brings the relationship to a point of irretrievable breakdown, she cannot be allowed to seek divorce on the ground of breakdown of marriage. That would simply mean giving someone the benefit of his or her own misdeeds. It is her defense that in the matrimonial home she was not allowed to live peacefully, and in view of harassment from her mother-in-law, she wanted the petitioner to live separately, and he did not make any attempt to protect her. In the case of Savitri Pandey versus Prem Chandra Pandey, the court held that marriage between the parties cannot be dissolved only on the avertments made by one of the parties that as the marriage between them has broken down, no useful purpose would be served to keep it alive. The sanctity of marriage cannot be left at the whims of one of the annoying spouses. The counsel will now request the co-counsel to move forward with the contentions.
The counsel would like to seek permission of your lordships to continue with the contentions.
Ms. Kanishka, just before you begin, Ms. Arora, what is your stated position? Has the marriage completely broken down, or there is some scope of reconciliation between husband and wife?
Your lordship, there is a process of reconciliation between the parties.
Please proceed now, Ms. Kanishka.
Much obliged. Good evening, your lordships. To begin with the issue 2A, your lordships, counsel already stated the petitioner is not entitled to divorce the counsel. To divorce, the counsel would like to add that the petitioner caused cruelty and party at fault. That the petitioner is an petitioner in an attempt to avoid his matrimonial duties towards his wife, that is respondent, and his children, has filed the petition for divorce. That the relationship between the respondent and her mother-in-law were quite tangled from day one of the marriage. His mother-in-law used to chide her for her skin color and her educational qualification. She often used to treat her as a financial burden on her family. That the respondent, whenever asked the petitioner to intervene, he turned a blind eye upon her and in return asked her to mend her ways. Whereas the counsel believes that it was the sole responsibility of the petitioner to pacify the respondent in this matter. that the council would like to bring to the notice of your lordships that it wasn't the petitioner who was under constant trauma, but it was the respondent, as not only that the husband refused to intervene in the matter of the respondent with her mother-in-law, but also from the very beginning tried to break the sacred tie of marriage. It is while the respondent was away, because of the rude and intolerant behavior of the petitioner and his mother, he filed a petition for judicial separation against her, after which the respondent returned back to the matrimonial home only within 2 weeks, which shows that the respondent never wanted willfully to desert the petition or to dissolve the marriage. The respondent would the council would like to share certain conditions of cruelty that are the physical violence of the spouse, having affairs or committing adultery, and also in cases where either spouse are falsely accused of committing adultery, the constant manifestations of agony, rage with the addition of yelling or abusing at the people, demoralizing each other, not disclosing any facts, and whereas a mere quarrel, petty, outrageous behavior of or differences between the spouses does not come in the ambit of cruelty, because this is something that is common in a today married life, and that is what the petitioner said, that the respondent had been doing cruelty, whereas when we see these conditions, respondent has nowhere done any kind of cruelty to the petitioner. If your lordships may refer to the case of Vinita Saxena versus Pankaj Pandit, the apex court in this case said that as to what constitutes the required mental cruelty for the purpose of the said provision will not depend on the numerical count of such incidents or only on the continuous course of such conduct, but really go by the intensity, gravity, and stigmatic impact of it when meted out even once at the and the deleterious effect of it on the mental attitude, which clearly shows that it was not the petitioner who was under trauma and pressure, but the respondent, which made her furious or gave her suicidal thoughts. Not only this, the petitioner also refused to maintain her and her children, which no wife would accept, especially when she is just a matriculation passed. If your lordship may refer to the case of Neelam Kumar versus Dayarani, as my co-counsel already stated, that the apex court clearly said that if a party to a marriage by own conduct brings the relationship to a point of irretrievable breakdown, she cannot be allowed to seek divorce on the ground of breakdown of marriage. That would simply mean giving someone the benefits of his or her own misdeeds. As already stated, the petitioner himself is trying to take advantage of his own wrong, and in the circumstances of the case, the marriage between the parties cannot be held to have become dead for invoking the jurisdiction of this court under Article 142 of the Constitution for dissolving the marriage, and that no person can be permitted to flout the course of justice by his or her overt acts. Lordships are satisfied with the contention. The council would like to proceed with the last issue.
Next.
Yeah, you can proceed with the next issue.
Yes, ma'am. You have like 5 minutes left, so kindly try to wrap it up.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you.
The last issue, your lordships, is that the respondent is eligible to claim the maintenance against the petitioner. In light of the issue humbly submitted, firstly, that the respondent does not desert the petitioner, and secondly, that respondent is still eligible for maintenance. That it is humbly submitted before this honorable court that all the allegations by petitioner over the respondent are malified and not true in any sense. And
Ms. Gupta, under which section are you asking for the maintenance? Under which provision, which act you are asking for the maintenance?
Your lordship, first of all, the council is asking for maintenance under section 125 of CRPC.
Have you filed, was any petition filed before these proceedings under section 125 of CRPC?
The petitions were filed, Your Lordship, but they were dismissed, and so the SLP has been filed.
A suit was filed which was dismissed, not a petition.
Apologies, Your Lordship, just.
Your
In any
Lordship,
case,
the maintenance suit was not dismissed. It was decided in the favor of the petitioner.
Your Lordship, the co-counsel said that the suit was not dismissed, but was decided in favor of the petitioner, and hence the SLP has been filed under Section 125 CRPC.
The SLP is under 125 CRPC.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Can an SLP be filed under 125 CRPC?
Your Lordship, the SLP has been filed under Article 136 for taking maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC and under HAMA.
Okay, we understand, but the question of my colleague judge, Mr. Sandeep, is that if it is whether it is a suit or it's a petition which has been brought into under challenge till the Supreme Court. If it is a suit, it should be under Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act. If it is a petition which has been brought into under challenge, then it should be under Section 125 CRPC. The facts say that it's a suit. So are you still continuing your argument that it is a petition under 125 which has been brought into under challenge till the Supreme Court?
Your Lordship, in the recent judgment of Rajneesh versus Neha, the criminal appeal was filed on the grounds of 125 CRPC as well as HMA and DVs, and hence the petitioner, the council files a petition.
I understand. I'm not asking about the judgment. Just Mr. Sandeep, if you can clarify your query again to her. Please address this
basically, there are two separate legal proceedings for maintenance which are possible. One is a suit under HMA, and the second is a petition under the Criminal Procedure Code. Now, a proceeding which is filed under Criminal Procedure Code is called a petition. A petition under Section 125. The proceeding which is filed under HMA is called a suit under Section 18. The facts on the file, the facts on the moot proposition that is before us, says a suit was filed and a suit was allowed and the appeal was dismissed. So if it was a suit, it should have been under HMA, and what you are arguing before Supreme Court is with respect to Section 125 petition, which as per the record before us was never filed, never allowed. So where is the dispute? In any case, you please proceed with your argument.
Hello.
In fact, you can also clarify on behalf. We allow you also to clarify.
Your Lordships, thank you for pointing this out. I think that my co-counsel is having some network issues.
Yeah, you can proceed to clarify on this issue.
Yes, Your Lordship. So now we will be moving forward with the with the issue of HAMA. That under the HAMA, the wife was. Sorry, Your Lordship, I was not prepared for this very well for this issue. My co-counsel was about to present this, so please excuse me. In HAMA, the suit can be was denied on the basis of the desertion, but it has. But even if the deserted, the petitioner is responsible to maintain the children. And under HAMA, the wife has not deserted. She has been constructive desertion to push the wife out of the home. That it can be seen from the last paragraph of the facts that the husband that it was due to the behavior of the husband that wife has left the matrimonial home.
Ms. Kriti, the time is over. So, sir, if there is any questions, please.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Your Lordship. Your Lordship.
The time is over. Yes.
Ma'am, the council seeks permission for rebuttal.
No, actually, this was the only time that was given. Okay.
If your Lordship allows for the rebuttal, then we can rebut.
Yeah, 1 minute time for you.
Okay, Your Lordship, much obliged. Your Lordship, the opposite counsel is contending that this SLP is not maintainable. But Your Lordship, it is exclusive and sole discretion of the Supreme Court under Article 142 of the Constitution that only Supreme Court can deal with the matters concerning irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. Hence, this SLP is maintainable. Your Lordship, the opposite counsel stated that Bansuri and Munna are living apart only for a period of 3 years. But they are living for more than 3 years, and Your Lordship, the 71st Law Commission in its report suggested that if the parties are living for a period which is more than 3 years, that is, the factum separation is more than 3 years, then the divorce on the basis of IBM can be granted. Your Lordship, in the present case, the marriage is dead physically and emotionally, and continuance of the alliance for the namesake would only mean prolonging the agony of the parties. Hence, for doing complete justice in the instant case, the Honorable Supreme Court should invoke its jurisdiction under Article 142 of the Constitution and grant divorce on the ground of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Your Lordship, Munna is not the erring spouse in the instant case, and it has already been established by my co-counsel. So the doctrine of recrimination as alleged by my opposite counsel is not applicable in the instant case. Your Lordship, as already pointed by this honorable court, that suit was filed, not petition. Hence, respondent can't claim maintenance under section 125 of the CRPC. And last but not the least, as far as the maintenance is concerned, Bansuri is guilty of desertion as already established previously. Hence, the decision of the lower court and the high court declining maintenance to Bansuri on the ground of desertion shall be upheld. That's it, Your Lordship. It was it was a pleasure to argue before this court.
Thank you.
The council seek permissions for rebuttals. Your Lordship, may I proceed?
Pardon?
The permission for rebuttals.
Permission for? I'm not able to hear you.
Rebuttals. Permission for rebuttals.
I think we have heard the arguments enough, Mr. Arora. I think this is good enough.
We have already heard you.
Thank you, Ms. Priti, since the time is over. Thank you so much to all the teams for their participation. Result of this round shall be announced soon, and it shall be given on your groups, and same shall be shared with the participant teams of the semi-final round. Thank you so much, sir. I again, on behalf of CPJ College of Higher Study and School of Law, would like to express my deepest gratitude to Mr. AVS Subramaniam and Mr. Sandeep Chilana for your valuable time and efforts. The final round is scheduled for 10th April 2021 from 1:30 to 2:30. The presiding judges for the event shall be Mr. R.S. Goswami, Senior Advocate and Ex-Chairman, Bar Council of Delhi, Partner and Founder, R.S. Goswami and Associates, and Mr. Murari Tiwari, Senior Advocate and Chairman of Enrollment Committee, Bar Council of Delhi. Thank you again. Thank you so much for all your time and efforts. And The judges and the participants are requested to kindly move for the interview. Thank you so much, and we shall see you tomorrow. Thank you.